The Journey Beneath the System by Swapnil Saurav.
3. Struggle begins. It was 3:30 p.m. Aarav and Faiyaz turned around the corner and walked to the hotel entrance. Still, that was shabby of you, grumbled Faiyaz. Drop it already. She was a musician, not an actress, the carefree Aarav replied. Faiyaz frowned. So you're saying that if she'd been an actress, you'd have sent her off with me? They entered the hotel lobby, still immersed in their discussion. Guys! What took you so long? Both of them turned their attention to the front, where Bhavin was leaning against the reception desk. Aarav lifted his eyebrows. You're early, he said in surprise. Is it that strange? I'm a very punctual person, replied Bhavin. Are you? Seriously? Asked the other two in sarcastic voices. Bhavin hesitated. Okay, perhaps not all the time. But I gave my word to Charvi. Now that I think of it, I thought she'd be the first one to arrive. Faiyaz looked around. Oh, that explains what you were doing here. You don't have a key, he said. There were only two. Why was I the one left without a key? Bhavin protested. Because you're a very punctual person, Aarav remarked. And because Charvi is usually the first one to arrive, he added, cutting off Bhavin's incoming complaint. Well, she did say 4 p.m. Technically, she's not late yet, said Faiyaz. Let's go up already. They went upstairs to the room. So how did it go? Asked Bhavin. The other two replied simultaneously. Great. However, Aarav's tone was loaded with satisfaction, whereas Faiyaz's had a tinge of resentment. Bhavin stared back and forth between them, then he simply said, He's frustrated because I got to hang out with a girl first, explained Aarav. Don't worry, Faiyaz, you'll have a girlfriend someday, he said to Faiyaz, smirking. Mates don't abandon one another like that, argued Faiyaz. Aarav patted his back lightly. All right, I'm sorry, he said. I was just messing with you. Besides, it was a really good chance. Faiyaz remained serious for a moment, then laughed as if nothing had happened. You're right, it really was. I just wanted to hear an apology, he said. Bhavin repeated, not quite following the conversation. Hey, you have to tell me all about it, he demanded. Of course, mate, Aarav said. But first tell us about yourself. What's this football league you said you joined? Bhavin became very excited all of a sudden. Oh, yes. You won't believe the things they have here in the city. They've got fancy equipment, and several trainers per team, even a stadium. Guys, you've got to see the stadium, it's just huge. And... Wait right there, Faiyaz interrupted him. How did you enter in the first place? Is it open to visitors or something? Bhavin gave him a strange look as if he didn't understand the question. No, I'm a club member. How come no one believes I'm a club member? My talent is so obvious, he said, putting his hands on his hips in a victorious pose. Aarav gave him a suspicious stare. Who recruited you? He asked. You must have talked to a recruiter, at least. Yes. It was an old man. Well, maybe not that old. But kind of old, compared to us. I mean, get to the point, Aarav hurried him. So he went up to me and told me that I looked like a natural, and asked if I wanted to play with the big guys. And here I am. The evaluation was this morning, and the trainer said I did stupendously. He finished with a pleased smile. There was a moment of silence as the friends stared at him. So, he recruited you before seeing you play? Faiyaz inquired slowly. Doesn't that strike you as odd? Aarav added. Bhavin scratched his head. Well, I suppose it is, but I thought maybe he had a lot of experience and was able to tell how good someone is just by looking at them. he said. Aarav and Faiyaz stared at each other. I think it's fishy, Faiyaz said. Yeah, Aarav agreed. Why? Asked Bhavin. They each placed a hand on one of Bhavin's shoulders. Look, I know you're a good football player, Faiyaz began carefully. But things don't just come for free like that. There must be something else about that club, Aarav continued. Something they haven't told you. Bhavin's brow furrowed in very slow motion as his friend's words sank in. Perhaps, he said. Yes, asked Faiyaz. Perhaps you're jealous because I was the first one to succeed, he finished. Are you kidding me? Aarav replied. Did you just say that? Faiyaz asked, both of them visibly angry. Just as they started fighting, the room door opened. What the is going on here? Charvi yelled at the boys, who had fallen to the floor and were wrestling on top of each other. Can't I leave you guys alone for 1 hour? The three of them stood up as fast as lightning. Are you okay? Aarav asked. The other two seemed scared of her. She never lost her temper like that. Do I look okay? Charvi retorted. I just had the worst day of my life, and now I come and find you all fighting and... She burst up in tears. The three young men surrounded her and guided her to one of the beds. Oh no, I'm so sorry, Aarav said. We all are, assured Faiyaz, and gave a strong hit to Bhavin with his elbow behind Charvi's back. Yes. We are very sorry, quickly added Bhavin, rubbing his ribs. Charvi wiped her face with her hands, sobbing. What happened? They asked. Charvi told them about her ordeal and how she had failed at literally all her attempts to enter a casting that day. Hey, it's just the first day, said Faiyaz. Surely you'll make it if you keep trying, said Aarav. Those people didn't deserve you, finished Bhavin firmly. The last comment made Charvi smile. Thank you, guys. You're the best after all, she replied, and they all hugged her. The silence of the group hug was broken by a stomach growl. What? You haven't had lunch? Bhavin exclaimed. Aarav stood up. We need to solve that right away. Let's go. Oh no, we have to go to see the flat. I'll just eat some snacks on the way, she replied, looking for the groceries she had bought the day before. That's no good. You need something substantial, disagreed Bhavin. They convinced her to eat a more decent lunch and they went to a nearby restaurant before heading to the flat. Miss Balakrishnan welcomed them with food as well, which was a great surprise to them. Then she showed the place to the ones who hadn't seen it. It was a simple 2-bedroom flat with a combined kitchen/living room/dining area. As you could see, explained the old lady, making some gestures, the nearest bus stop is 2 blocks in that direction. We are a little far from the city center, but I personally prefer it that way. People in the center have become rude, unlike you polite young ones. Thank you for your kindness, Miss Balakrishnan, said Charvi, looking daggers at Faiyaz and Bhavin, who were stuffing themselves with the food that had been served on the table. They discussed the payment and arranged to move in the next day if everything went fine. Thank you very much, said Aarav in a deferential reverence. Oh, I am glad I can still be of use helping young people such as yourselves. You all look so good-hearted. I wish you can succeed in what has become of this city. It used to be so much better in the old days, said Miss Balakrishnan. She kissed each of them on the forehead. Bad people have come to Shamavali. Take good care, she told them. We will, Charvi replied as they left. She really was a lovely lady, just like you told us, said Bhavin, once on the street. You're just happy because she gave you food, Aarav pointed out. It was delicious, Faiyaz replied. But what do you reckon she meant at the end when we were leaving? She said that there are bad people in Shamavali. Charvi whispered. Well, that's what she meant then. Bad people are bad people, said Aarav. Seeing the ambience getting gloomy, Bhavan quickly intervened, but let's not worry about that right now. Let's do something fun. Aarav nodded. I agree, he said. Hey, I've got an idea. Faiyaz exclaimed. What is this place? Asked Charvi. They were standing at the entrance of a large amusement park. The tall, brightly lit Ferris wheel stood out the most against the night sky, close to a scary-looking roller coaster. I read something about this, and thought it'd be cool to try it out, Faiyaz explained. Bhavan stared at the rides, mouth agape. This has got to be the coolest place ever. He cried out. Impressive, Aarav concurred. Charvi's eyes were gleaming. What are we waiting for? Let's go in. She yelled, and the boys ran in behind her. Having never visited a big city before, that was the first time they saw an amusement park. They tried all the rides, even the ones they were scared of, in sheer thrill. They ate the snacks of the fair and played games in all the stands. Yay! Charvi squealed. I never thought this day would end in such a fun way. She looked at her 3 male friends, who were smiling at her. Thank you very much, guys, she told them. I was down, and you all made an effort to cheer me up. I really appreciate it. Faiyaz made a thumbs-up gesture. It was nothing, he replied, grinning. Now, I'll be right back, Charvi said, and went to the restrooms. After Charvi had left, Bhavan cleared his throat. Guys. Aarav and Faiyaz turned towards him. He diverted his gaze a few times before speaking again. I didn't mean it back at the hotel. I know you're just worried. Maybe because you don't trust me too much, maybe. Just maybe I've not been the most trustworthy one in the group. But, well, basically. You know, he blurted out. Faiyaz lifted an eyebrow. We know what? Silence. Let it out, Aarav urged him. I'm sorry, okay? That was it, he finally confessed. There was another moment of silence. Bhavan looked awkward. Then Aarav lifted his arms in the air. You're forgiven, he said in a solemn voice, waving his hands as though it was some kind of ceremony. Faiyaz laughed out loud. Yeah, we're good, mate, he said, punching Bhavan in the arm. Ow! Bhavan yelped. We know you're dumb and all, but you're a good friend deep down, continued Faiyaz, shrugging. Hey! Bhavan complained. The next day, they left the hotel and moved all their belongings to the flat that would become their new home. So, Bhavan began. So, Faiyaz replied. Here we are, declared Charvi. affirmed Aarav. All the bags were piled up in one of the bedrooms. Bhavan voiced the thought that was on everyone's mind. We're officially living in Shamavali, he said. They looked at one another. We're living in Shamavali. They all yelled together and jumped, hugged and celebrated. After they calmed down, they sat at the lone table and ate what was left of the snacks. We have to buy food, Aarav pointed out. And clean up the place, Charvi added. But first, we've got to sort out how we are going to sleep, stated Bhavan, pointing at the bedrooms. There are only 2 rooms, and I don't see enough beds for everyone. They walked up to the bedroom where their things were. This is our room, Aarav said. The other one is Charvi's. Why does she have a room for herself? Bhavan asked. She's a girl, you know. Faiyaz replied. Oh, right, Bhavan said. Charvi rolled her eyes. But this room only has 2 beds. He argued again. You can sleep on the floor, joked Faiyaz. Bhavan frowned. We've already solved that, said Aarav, and pointed at the bottom of one of the beds. The 2 other men followed his gesture and noticed a set of wooden planks and bars filling the space below it. What's that? Faiyaz asked. The upper part of a bunk bed, answered Charvi. It was disassembled because the previous people using this room didn't need it, but Miss Balakrishnan gave Aarav the instructions to reinstall it. Oh, Faiyaz replied, not looking very convinced. Well, let's get to work, Aarav said. Bhavin made a sudden exclamation. What is it? Asked Charvi. Bhavin began backing off towards the door. I'm sorry, guys. I'd really love to help, but I just remembered I have to go practice with the team. I'll make up for it another day, I swear. He claimed, trying to flee without getting hit by Charvi, who was already aiming at him. That's shameless. Charvi sighed after he managed to escape. Well, it's just the three of us. Faiyaz shrugged. I wasn't really expecting him to help anyway, he said. I'll take care of the bunk bed, Aarav announced. If you give me a list, I can go buy the food, Faiyaz volunteered. Charvi took a paper out of her bag and handed it to Faiyaz. I had already prepared one, so here you go, she told him. Faiyaz raised his eyebrows in surprise. Whoa, you're always so organized. You never cease to amaze me, he told her. Charvi blushed. Just go already. I'll start cleaning. Bhavin probably won't return until late, so let's just do without him today. The boys nodded and went to their respective tasks. The sky had already gotten dark. A luxury car pulled over in front of the building. Thanks for the ride. I was so worn out from today's training, I didn't know how I'd make it back home, Bhavin said. Next to him sat the man who had recruited him, always wearing the same hat and sunglasses, even at night. You are very welcome, the man said. Bhavin put his hand on the door handle, then hesitated and turned back towards the other man. Sir, I don't mean to be disrespectful or anything, but I really thought I'd be practicing with the team today. When will I get to play with them? He asked, trying not to sound rude. At first, there was no response. Then the man slowly lowered his sunglasses and stared at him directly. Now that he could see them better, Bhavin realized one of the man's eyes was brown, but the other one was a light grey, almost white in color. His stare was intimidating, and Bhavin felt small and insignificant in front of him. The man smiled. That is a very reasonable doubt, he replied, making Bhavin relax a little. You see, I am not the only one responsible for the club. In order to prove the others that you are indeed worthy of my sponsorship, there are a few things you must do before you can become an official team member, he explained. I trust you will not have a problem with performing some simple tasks, will you? Bhavin was still mesmerized by the look of those enigmatic eyes. No, sir. No problem at all, was the response. He cleared his throat to sound more confident. I'm very capable, sir. There's nothing I can't do. He finished. Good, the man replied. I knew you would not disappoint me. Go on, then. Have a good night. As the boy walked away from the car and into the building, the man withdrew his phone from his pocket and made a call. Your orders, sir, said a voice from the other side of the line. Tell the men that I have the address. I expect them to start tomorrow.